I mean, it was because Saliba went to head the ball and he kind of ended up headering him instead of the ball because he was a little bit delayed. But acting, masterclass. I mean, it's like what we saw a few weeks back with City. I feel like these players are getting very good at faking it. Welcome back to the Arsenal Humans podcast with me, Luce, and Happy New Year officially, because this is the first episode that I'm doing of 2025, which is pretty exciting. It's also the 10th episode, so I feel like a lot is aligning right now. Apart from the football this week, we've not had any women's football, but we have had the men play, and I've literally just finished watching Arsenal versus Brighton, so we're going to get into that a little bit later on. The football's not been aligning completely. Bit of a mixed week, I have to say, but we're bringing out this episode on a Sunday. I say I'm bringing out this episode on a Sunday this week, and I know I said Tuesday for every week, but I think I might have to change that. So just keep an eye on my socials and this channel to see when I'll actually be posting them, because I think I might have to change it so it's a bit more set in stone. I'm thinking Sunday or Monday is a better vibe, because then you get just the fresh reactions from the weekend, which is exactly what I'm going to be giving you from that Brighton game. So it's a great start. But anyways, it is 2025. We do have some exciting Arsenal news, mostly about the young players at Arsenal, and I'm excited for this next squad, this next breath of fresh air, you get me? So yeah, stay tuned for that. But let's actually get into a bit of a warm-up question I've done, same as last episode. It's a warm-up question this week, not a warm-up poll, because I thought it just made a bit more sense with the questions, and because there's not too many games to go off from both teams. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Okay, so we're going to just dive straight into this warm-up poll. Well, it's actually a question this week, as I said before, and the question I put out on my Instagram story, so if you want to take part in any of the future questions or polls, then make sure you check out my Insta, which is the same as this channel. It's the same username, to just make it nice and simple for everyone. The question I put out was, who do you want Arsenal to sign this January? And that's because right now it's the start of the year, and this is sort of where there's a few rumours. I know the January transfer window is usually quite quiet for both men and women, but I do feel like we've had some pretty big signings at Arsenal and pretty big departures in a January transfer window. So I thought, you know what, let's see what you guys are thinking about. So we've already actually signed one player, which I will get into in the Let's Chat section, because I want to talk about transfer talk in more detail, but this is just a brief view to see your views, basically. But yeah, looking at all the comments, I'm just scrolling through now. There's a common theme for the women's side about Barcelona players. So we've got Kira Walsh in there a few times, which she's a name that has been rumoured with us for the last couple seasons. So especially last season, I really thought we were getting her ahead of this season. So I'm gutted we didn't, but maybe we could in January. I mean, it's not looking the most likely, but I'm thinking if it's not happening now, then summer it's got to happen. Bon Mati as well is a name that has been mentioned a couple of times, which is good to see. I mean, she'd be amazing in the WSL, and a player of her calibre I wouldn't want to play against, so I'd love to have her in the side. And I think as well, in her position, we've got a few older players now in the squad that are playing those midfield spaces, so I feel like this could be a good replacement, definitely with Kira and Bon Mati. I mean, having both would be crazy, like a little bit delusional from me. Someone even said Trinity Rodman, who 100% back that would be crazy to see her in the WSL, let alone at Arsenal. That would be unreal. I think these big names that we're seeing from around the world, oh, I've got a hair attached to me, these big players we're seeing from around the world, if they're coming to the WSL, which is crazy, firstly, it does so much for the growth of English football, or football in England, should I say. But if they are coming, they got to come to Arsenal, because we do not want to be playing against them, especially if, I mean, Chelsea, all their signings this summer, they took a couple of Barca players. Obviously, they have Lucy Bronze now in their squad. So I just think we don't want to be strengthening other teams. We just want to be making our team good. Moving on to the men's side, I've got a few suggestions. Isak is the main one. I think he is such a direct player, and his form is pretty impressive recently. So I feel like he'd slot in perfectly to our squad. I mean, I do feel like some of the players recently have been proven why they should be in our attacking lineup, you know. So you've got like Jesus really proving it, Martinelli with a couple goals here and there. Even Ethan Nwaneri, who I'm going to chat about a lot later on in this episode because I'm very impressed with him right now. I think everyone is. I don't think you can say a bad word about that player, especially at just 17 years old, but I'll get onto that. I don't want to say too much now. So I do feel like a lot of players have stepped up, but I do feel like if we are looking for places to fill in the men's, then an out striker pretty much would be good. So like Isaac, 100% back that. Not sure how Newcastle fans will feel about that. I know a few of my friends support Newcastle and there's no way they'd let him go. So, one can dream. But if I'm being completely honest, apart from maybe the game I've just watched now, the Brighton one, as a whole recently, over the last couple of months, both men and women, I'm thinking we've got pretty good sides. So there's not too many spaces that we need to fill. There's no places that are empty of anything. It's just more getting backup players. So like obviously we've noticed when Saka's been injured right now, which is something I'll touch on later. He's been injured, so we've had to almost fill his slot, but we've got players to do that. But then it's like, do you have players to back up the backup players as well? So yeah, I guess it's more just like building the strength in the squad, strength in numbers, and like the depth rather than actually we need players. Like, so we are in a good position. But no, it's interesting to hear your views. Thank you for anyone that commented, because obviously it helps me talk about things. I mean, I'll chat about anything anyways, but it does definitely help this episode and this podcast as a whole run smoothly. So I do appreciate that. But let's actually look at what has happened for Arsenal this week, as well as talk in more depth about this transfer window. Brentford 1, Arsenal 3. That's not a bad start. That is not a bad start for us in 2025, because I predicted it to be 2-3. So Brentford would score 2, we'd score 3. And that's pretty close. So, my predictions are getting better as we're going through the year. I mean, for this game anyways, later on in the week. Not really. But I did say, obviously, to look out for players like Mbeumo, and obviously he proved me right because he scored in the 13th minute. But then I do feel like, although Brentford's home record is no joke whatsoever, I mean, I'm impressed that we managed to sort of like cut their running streak of that. It was good to see us get the 3 goals and the 3 points. And I do feel like we were definitely the better side in that game, no doubt about it. It was sort of a bit uncertain. I mean, if you saw in my last pod, if you wanted to go back, I predicted obviously 3-2. And I did predict us to have a bit of a tough game, because not only is their home record really good, but we also have a few players missing, Saka being the main one that everyone's talking about right now. And I was a bit apprehensive, like, okay, how are we going to function without him? We do have other good players, don't get me wrong, but even like Sterling, then he was out and this was his chance to shine. So I'm very gutted for him as a player, because I feel like this was his moment, but obviously it probably wasn't meant to be his moment, and his moment's going to come at some point later on, whether that's with Arsenal or not with Arsenal. Sort of a bit of a question right now. But actually seeing 3 different goal scorers is pretty impressive. So we had Jesus, Marino and Martinelli. And I do feel like it was pretty impressive. We can't go without mentioning in this episode at all, Ethan Nwaneri made his first Premier League appearance, or his first start in the Premier League. And yeah, he really stepped up to it. I feel like he was crucial when he was meant to be crucial, if that made sense. And at such a young age of literally 17 years old, crazy to see that. And I just think, yes, this game, we went into it a bit nervous about it, but I just think we did what we were meant to do. And at the start of the week, I was very proud of Arsenal. Like, this proves that we are title contenders. I mean, it put us second. Forest won their game. Forest are having a blinder of a year. Unreal season from them. I feel like they definitely will be getting a European spot at some point. But they're literally just behind us in third. And then obviously Chelsea losing to Ipswich, which is something we have to mention, obviously. That's just been great for us, because then it's meant that they've dropped a bit further down and they're not as threatening. I mean, don't get me wrong, the gap between us or any other team and Liverpool is still quite far, still quite a big gap. But I'm just happy that we got the crucial points that we meant to. It's a shame the same can't be said for the second game, which just happened now. Last night by the time this goes out, which was Brighton 1, Arsenal 1. I did predict Arsenal to win 3-1, so I'm gutted that didn't happen. Obviously, it happened earlier in the week, but just couldn't do it twice. And I feel like this is a place where this is a game where you're meant to get those points. It is a tough game. Like, I mean, we've drawn both times we've faced them this season, so obviously it is a tough game, we know that. But I just think if you look at Arsenal, they should be doing more. So that is frustrating that they couldn't get the 3 points, because now we're just putting ourselves even further behind Liverpool, and we've got even more work to do. And also, say if Chelsea win tomorrow, then there was no point in them losing against Ipswich, because now we're level with them. So it's really about making sure that every game matter and every point we're able to get. Obviously, that's obvious, like it's literally the aim of it. But I think just looking at it, it is just really frustrating now that we have dropped points. And obviously Liverpool come up against United tomorrow. And I never thought I'd say this, especially with Amarim's team's position right now. I really need United to win tomorrow. Like, I really, really need them to win. So hopefully, fingers crossed, United can win. Just so that, because for United, I mean, people, don't get me wrong, it's a bit extreme. People are saying about relegation. I'm like, guys, let's relax. Let's relax 1 second. But people are saying about it. So we know that United are dropping so far off that they're no threat to us, but Liverpool are a threat. So I'd rather United get some points, so it means that Liverpool don't. Obviously, I'd rather a draw or no one gets points, but we need Liverpool to lose basically tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes. And to be fair, once this episode is out, it probably won't be too far in the future that Liverpool and United will be facing each other. So have to stay tuned for that one. But I just, although yes, there was a penalty, I do think it was a very soft penalty. I don't want to focus too much on it because I don't really feel like it should have been given. But because of the position he was in, I was like, yeah, fair, okay. And João Pedro obviously equalised it. He converted it on the spot. I mean, it was because Saliba went to head the ball and he kind of ended up headering him instead of the ball, because he was a little bit delayed. But acting masterclass. I mean, it's like what we saw a few weeks back with City. I feel like these players are getting very good at faking it, and it's really annoying me because you don't need to fake it. Like, just play football. This is one reason why the men's game does frustrate me a lot, because there is a lot of faking it, and I'm just like, guys, just play football, get it in the back of the net, please, because you're just wasting time. But obviously, it went in Brighton's favour, and that is why I'm very bitter, along with many other Gooners that I've seen online right now. We're all just a bit frustrated with that. So, you know. But anyways, I want to focus back at the start of the game. And yes, Brighton needs some credit because it was a tough game. Their link-ups in the midfield were very impressive. But the one player for us that really showed that he was meant to be there, meant to be on that pitch, was Nwaneri at just 17 years old. He found the back of the net. He was so direct with the ball. I mean, he literally had it. He could have probably slotted it back to Rice, who had probably a better view of the goal, but nope, he just powered through. He had one thing in his mind, you could just tell, and he got that goal. And it says a lot. It says a lot, so much so that I've got 4 stats which span across his whole career. And I'm just gonna reel off these stats because this is such an impressive young player we have at Arsenal, and I'm so excited he's at Arsenal. I mean, yeah, let me just get into them before I rush ahead. So number 1, Nwaneri is one of just 6 players to get multiple Premier League goals before he turns 18, and is the only Arsenal player to actually have done that, which is very good. I mean, obviously we want more Arsenal players, but you've got to start somewhere, and he is setting that legacy, which I'm loving. Even Nwaneri is setting that legacy, which I'm loving so much right now. Number 2, he's already scored 5 times in all competitions. 2 of them have been in the Premier League as well, so it shows that he's been good in loads of different competitions. I was fortunate enough to see him score in the Carabao Cup, which was amazing at the Emirates. Number 3, he is Arsenal's second youngest Premier League goal scorer. This was obviously when he got his first goal a few weeks back, but it's a stat worth mentioning because, you know, unreal. And number 4, if we take a look back to the very, very start of his senior career, he became the youngest ever Premier League player a couple of years ago at just 15 years and 101 days old, which, I mean, 15 years old, that is crazy. I mean, that was me like, what, 6-7 years ago doing GCSE vibe. Like, I can't imagine stepping on that Emirates pitch. Like, that is crazy. Crazy. Yeah, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Nwaneri is setting a legacy with Arsenal, not just Arsenal, but football as a whole. And I'm so excited to see where it will take him. I have no doubt that if he carries on the same trajectory, he will become one of the best Arsenal players, but also one of the best players in the Premier League as a whole. And you never know, even around the world. So I've got high hopes for him. Obviously, I don't want everyone putting too much pressure on him, but I do feel like he's already exceeded everyone's expectations. So, we'll see where he takes it from there. Focusing back on the game though, obviously that was a really nice positive section. Focusing back on the game, obviously it was disappointing not to get all the points. There were a lot of set pieces towards the end, which I thought was meant to be our thing, and just didn't really work out today. It just wasn't our day, basically. So I guess now we've just got to focus on Liverpool getting that loss or draw tomorrow. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But I think what this game has made me realise is maybe there's a few spaces on the pitch that we do need to strengthen. So let's move on to our transfer talk, because it is January, so I will be doing this little section for every week that I'm doing it. So for the next 3-4 weeks, I'll be talking about the transfers. Hopefully there'll be a few more in the next couple of weeks. We've had one signing, which has been for Arsenal women, which is good. Layla Harbert has signed for Arsenal at just 18 years old, which is crazy. That is literally the best birthday present you could get. She's been with Arsenal since the academy, so she is born and bred with the Gunners, like you see with Leah Williamson, and obviously look at her career. So I think it is good to see that we're getting these players that are created from our academies that we are now playing in the first team. I mean, Layla Harbert is joining the likes of Katie Reed, Nwaneri, Miles Lewis-Skelly, you name it. We've got so many young Gunners right now, and it's a good time. It's a good time to be a Gooner, because I'm excited about the next generation of ballers and what they're going to offer, because they're already starting to. I mean, you see Nwaneri, he's already flying right now. So I just think if she can get more minutes, the same with Katie Reed, we're going to have a great future at Arsenal. So I'm buzzing for that. Obviously, focusing still on the women's side, we've got a few rumoured names. All of these are rumours, as a disclaimer, by the way. Kira Walsh is the main one that I want to focus on, because she's one that's sort of been rumoured for like a year now. So I do feel like she could come to Arsenal. I think what she actually does on the pitch, I mean, you see it with England, with the Lionesses under Wiegman. She basically slots into sort of a Declan Rice stance of CDM, where she can cover both positions but also push forwards to help maybe Georgia Stanway or whoever is in the central midfield position. And I think what she could do with Arsenal, obviously she's like best friends with Leah Williamson, who's just behind her in centre back. And then if she had the likes of Kim Little, Cooney Cross, you name it, the players in front, I feel like the link-ups would be crazy. So that is a player I'd love to see at Arsenal. Doubt it's going to happen this January, if I'm being honest. But if it's not happening this January, then I have full faith that it should happen in the summer, because I feel like she's ready to come back to the WSL. And we've seen a few players return to the WSL this season. So hopefully Kira Walsh is next on the list. The camera just cut out, so I'm really hoping you still heard some of what I've said, but I'm going to talk about the men's now. Obviously, the main position that we are looking for is strikers. So we do have the likes of Newcastle's Isak or Wolves Cunha that have been linked with Arsenal. Not sure how likely they are, because they obviously are at Premier League clubs right now, and it is unlikely that they'd move mid-season. Benjamin Sesko is one player as well that I really want to mention, because I did think he was going to sign for Arsenal in the summer. Didn't end up happening, because he ended up getting a year contract extension with Leipzig. But he is a striker, he is young, he's very promising out there. So I feel like what he could bring is a lot to us. And obviously being youthful as well, I feel like we are very focused on getting a younger squad and really strengthening, so that in the next few years when they are older, they're not only older in age but also in experience and how they play and control the pitch. So I do feel like Sesko joining is an option, obviously because he has extended his contract by a year. It's not looking too likely. So obviously, yeah, I've mentioned like Sesko and Walsh coming to Arsenal. We'll just have to see how likely that is. I do feel like, yeah, all these names that I've been mentioning are all rumoured. So we'll have to see if any of them actually happened. And obviously the January windows do tend to be quite quiet, so I'm not sure if any of them will go forwards. But you know what? You'll just have to stay tuned and keep following Arsenal, keep following this podcast, and then I'll update you as much as I can with all this transfer talk, because it is getting exciting. The fact we've already signed one player and it's only been 4 days is pretty crazy, especially when this is probably the quietest transfer window out of the two. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm also excited to see what Arsenal can do next week. We actually have 3 games coming up, so let me get into that now. Okay, so this week we do have 3 games coming up, and the women are back in action, which I'm absolutely buzzing about. I feel like this is what I've been looking forward to for a while now. They've been out for 3 weeks maybe, so I'm looking forward to this. And also, it's not just 3 games in one competition, it's across 3 different competitions. So the first one is Arsenal versus Newcastle, which will be happening on Tuesday, the 7th of January at the Emirates. So it's a home game for us. It is in the EFL semi-final. So it's the first leg this week. And I'm going to predict a 2-1 win. I do think that Newcastle's form has been good recently. I mean, they just beat Spurs at the weekend, and yeah, they've got a pretty good track record. Obviously, I've mentioned Isak quite a bit in this episode, so I do feel like if he's on form, he'll definitely be able to score against us. That's why I'm not predicting a clean sheet. It would be naive of me to do that. But I do think because we're on home soil and we know how much this means, especially because the second leg will be up in Newcastle, we want to make sure we actually get the points this time. So I will say 2-1 win. And then hopefully we're able to either equalise in the second leg or win that. And then we've obviously through to the finals, which would be crazy. And I do feel like this will just show how much we want the silverware, if that makes sense. So hopefully that happens. The second game of the week happens right at the end of the week, which is the women's side in the 4th round of the FA Women's Cup. It is Arsenal versus Bristol City, and it is on Sunday at 12:30. It's quite nice because there are 2 games on Sunday, but they're spread out nicely, so you should be able to catch both of them if you're able to anyways. So this one is at Meadow Park because it is the women's side, and yes, it's against Bristol City, who we know we're better than, but we can't get complacent because they were in the WSL last season, so we know that they have the ability to be in that league, in the top league, whereas you see some other teams playing teams that are a bit further down, maybe like tier 3, tier 4 onwards. So I think it is promising that we are against. So I think if we're able to win this is another good test for Slagers, who there's been no official announcement of her actually being manager, but I'm hoping, I feel like I've said this every episode, but I'm hoping next episode we'll be able to actually confirm whether she is or isn't. But as much as the Champions League the Champions League fixture that we played, what was that, a few weeks ago, that was a big test for us, and we obviously overcame that and we won it. I think this is the second big one because it will show how serious we are. But at the same time, I do think we will be winning 3-0. Don't want to get too complacent, but I do feel like we're going to be going in wanting to win that, and we would have had a few weeks out, so a bit of a rejig in the team, and hopefully come out of the blocks fighting. Same day, just a couple hours later, we have Arsenal versus Manchester United, which will be the 3rd round of the FA Cup. So we've got 2 FA Cup games in one day, quite chaotic. This one will be at the Emirates, and it is at 3 p.m. So like I said before, you can watch both. Considering the mess of Amarim's side, I don't know how else to word it, to be honest. I'm hoping that, although I want them to win against Liverpool, I'm hoping that they're not full of too much confidence. I mean, like I said, people are saying about relegation a bit extreme, but they are dropping quite a bit. I feel like Manchester as a whole, both City and United, are kind of dropping off a bit. So I'm hoping that this could be a good win for us. I mean, if you look at some of the other fixtures happening in the 3rd round of FA Cup this day, we pretty much pulled the short straw with this one because we are facing another Premier League club, another tough one. I mean, you've got like Bromley facing Newcastle, which would be such an exciting game if you're a Bromley fan for sure. But then it's like, oh, okay, so this is a good game for a neutral to watch, but as an Arsenal fan, I'm like, this is really unfair. And whoever wins in this, I think will be able to go quite far in the competition. So fingers crossed that can be Arsenal. It's actually crazy now I look at it. We do have, obviously, they're all cup competitions, none of them are league games, but we do have the men going into 2 different competitions in 1 week, which is a lot, both against Premier League clubs. So hopefully come out of top on both of them. But I'm going to predict that to be a 3-1. Again, I'm not backing a clean sheet because I do feel like Amarim's side shows up at different moments. I know obviously we beat them 2-0 when we first faced them a month or 2 ago. That was, I'm really bad with my timings. I think that was like a month ago or something. But yeah, I'm thinking 3-1. I'm backing us to win it, no doubt about that. Probably jinxed it right now, great. But I don't think it will be the easiest game, and there'll be a lot of pressure from the media, from everyone watching it, because this is the game. If you don't support a team, in the Premier League or in any of the other teams that are playing in the competition, this is the game to watch. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm excited about this week though. We've got 3 fixtures. I am predicting 3 wins again because, you know, I'm a delusional Arsenal fan apparently, which is really embarrassing. So we'll see what happens. Let's hope for the best. Well, we are already at the end of this episode. Episode 10 is done and dusted. If you're listening or watching, listening on Spotify, watching on YouTube, I hope you've enjoyed it. And I'm excited that this week, coming up, we do have both the men and women's playing. So there's a lot of football, a lot of action to get involved in. But obviously there's a lot of stuff happening on the pitch with those 3 games. But there's a lot more drama happening off the pitch right now with all these random names rumoured. So I want to know in the comments, who do you want to see Arsenal signing? But also, who do you want to see them saying bye to this January?